This is a presentation that summarizes my interview with Mr. Knight. Mr. Knight worked in education for 42 years. He worked in northern Arizona and southern Utah. His main career was spent in the classroom as a social studies teacher. He taught a lot of subjects including geography, Navajo history, U.S. history, world history, sociology, and other subjects in that discipline. As an administrator, his main responsibilities included dealing with student behavior. Most of his time was spent working at a high school, but he also worked at 2 community colleges throughout his career. One way to describe an advocate is someone who acts in favor of or on behalf of someone else. There are different types of advocates. Mr. Knight was a student-centered advocate. He understood the concept that children are born ready to learn. Because of this, he knew that learning would take place at different rates and paces depending on the student. He would teach lessons multiple times until the students could understand the concepts. He would let students redo tests and assignments as many times as needed until he and the student were content with their level of mastery. At the beginning of each class, Mr. Knight would give a student a question based on the previous day's lesson. If the majority of the students did not show mastery of that question, he would reteach the lesson. He knew the importance of hearing a new concept more than once and how it would lead to a better understanding of that topic. Additionally, if the students were able to make a joke or pun about the concept, he knew that they were retaining the information. Mr. Knight knew the importance of hands-on learning. For example, they played Monopoly to learn about the free enterprise system. He had to tweak some of the rules, but for the most part, students were able to play the game and learn. He also had Congress in his classroom. The Senate would be smaller than the House of Representatives, just how the U.S. Congress is set up. Additionally, they would have debates and pass bills. The president, Mr. Knight, would then pass or veto the bills. For the most part, he would veto them. But either way, the students would get a hands-on learning experience instead of just being lectured. As mentioned prior, Mr. Knight would rely a lot on bell ringers to determine whether or not the class understood a concept. This was his way of having a daily assessment that determined his next lesson. Additionally, he would also have frequent tests and quizzes. When he was teaching at a school in the Navajo Nation, most people were hesitant to trust and interact with those who did not live or grew up on the reservation. Mr. Knight knew that he would have to work past this, and this would take time. After a few years of trial and error, he said the biggest part was treating others how he wanted to be treated. Obviously, as a teacher, he had to set ground rules, but he knew that in order to gain respect, he had to give respect. Additionally, he said that he took a lot of Christ's teaching into consideration when teaching. Because Christ loved everyone and did not discriminate, neither could he. The mission of the school district where he worked was to work together to be better. The meaning of the word Kayenta in the Navajo language is little fingers of running water. Basically, everyone is needed to carry out a greater purpose. When it comes to advocating for others, the best thing, in Mr. Knight's opinion, is to get to know them. Without knowing them, it is impossible to know their needs. By getting to know each student as an individual, getting to know their siblings and family situation, Mr. Knight was able to make more connections. Making connections meant earning their respect and being able to advocate for them. Every so often, Mr. Knight would have one-on-one interviews with each student outside his classroom. In these interviews, he learned what he could do for them. Mr. Knight was in charge of the Upper Band program for a few years. The goal of this program was to help students understand the importance of college education. Students would go in groups to community colleges, universities, and trade schools in the Four Corners area to learn more about programs and college life. This program was successful. My biggest takeaway from this interview was that in order to be a successful advocate, I first need to get to know the students on a personal level. I need to understand their family and home life, their strengths and weaknesses, and more. Also, I need to get on their level. Not every high school student learns effectively by being lectured to. If I want my students to succeed in the classroom, I need to create lessons that engage them and allow them to have a hands-on learning experience. Lastly, the responsibility as an educator is to do everything in my power to help the students succeed.